Let me tell you something that most people will never say to your face, but you need to hear it more than anything else today. If your job is growing faster than you are, you're in trouble. If your income is outpacing your wisdom, if your reputation is growing while your discipline is shrinking, if the world is watching you succeed but inside you're eroding, then you're walking on a rope that's about to snap. And it won't matter how talented you are. It won't matter what your title says, how many degrees are framed on your wall, or what car you pull up in. Because success without self-development is the beginning of the end. You see, anyone can be busy. Anyone can hustle. Anyone can look impressive in the short term. But very few people will take the time daily to chisel away at their flaws, refine their thinking, expand their perspective, and fortify their mindset. Most people work hard on their job. They clock in, they perform, they meet deadlines. They build a resume. But they forget the most important work, the work they do on themselves. Because you are the foundation of every result in your life. You are the engine behind every outcome. And if you neglect the engine, the vehicle breaks down no matter how shiny the outside looks. So today, I want to challenge you not to work harder for your boss, not to work harder for recognition, not to work harder for money, but to work harder on yourself than you do on your job, harder on your habits than your paycheck, harder on your values than your goals, harder on your discipline than your deadlines, harder on your growth than your grind. Because your job may pay you by the hour, but your growth pays you for life. Let's start with the mind, because everything begins there. Before a man builds a fortune, he builds a philosophy. Before a woman becomes a leader, she becomes a learner. And before you command the respect of the world, you command the truth inside yourself. You've got to reprogram the way you think daily. Your mind is not a one-time upgrade. It's a constant renewal. You've got to read the books that stretch your thinking, not just the ones that confirm it. You've got to ask the questions that scare you, not just the ones that comfort you. You've got to expose yourself to ideas that challenge your ego, test your assumptions, and push your limits. If your mind is average, your life will be average, even if you get lucky. But if your mind is elite, your future will bend to the strength of your character. Because here's the truth. Your job gives you tasks, but your mind gives you vision. And vision always outlives tasks. Work on your vision until it makes the work irrelevant. Until the job becomes the tool, not the goal. And now belief. You have to believe so deeply in your value that the world can't help but notice it. But here's the thing. Belief isn't given. It's built. Belief is what happens when you keep your word to yourself so many times. You can't help but trust who you've become. When you show up on the days you don't feel like it. When you act with integrity, when no one is watching. When you choose the long road. When shortcuts scream your name. That's how belief is formed, not through compliments, not through luck, but through consistent self-respect. The people who achieve greatness don't do it because the world believed in them. They do it because they believed in themselves before there was any evidence, and then they created the evidence. Next comes clarity. Clarity isn't something you wait for, it's something you fight for. Because life is noisy. The world throws distractions at you every second. Notifications, expectations, comparisons. And if you're not intentional, you'll lose yourself trying to keep up with people who are already lost. So work harder on clarifying who you are than you do chasing who they are. Define your values. Write your non-negotiables. Understand what truly matters to you and then build your life around that. Clarity isn't about knowing what you want once. It's about reminding yourself of it daily until it becomes a fire that consumes everything that doesn't belong. Now, purpose, don't skip this. Purpose is not a passion, it's not a job title. It's not something you find on a weekend retreat. It's something you decide. You don't stumble into it. You claim it. You breathe life into it. You pour your energy into something bigger than your ego. When you work harder on your purpose than your paycheck, everything changes. You stop chasing validation and start building impact. You stop faking confidence and start living conviction. You stop asking, what do I get from this? And start asking, what do I give through this? Purpose is the power plant. It gives electricity to everything else in your life, your job, your relationships, your energy, your focus. But only if you feed it. Then discipline. Now this is where most people fall. They start strong. They post about it. They buy the planner. They set the goals. But when the mood fades, so does the action. Why? Because they never trained their discipline to be stronger than their emotion. Discipline is working on yourself when it's inconvenient. It's showing up when the world gives you every excuse not to. It's doing the hard thing, the boring thing, the necessary thing over and over until it becomes who you are. Your job might require discipline, sure, but your life, your legacy demands it. Discipline builds the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Now let's talk action. Because no amount of wisdom, belief, clarity, or purpose means anything without movement. You have to act on what you know. You have to act on what you say you want. You have to act even when you're uncertain, especially when you're uncertain. You don't wait for courage to act. You act until courage shows up. The world doesn't reward potential. It rewards execution. So while everyone else is planning, doubting, and scrolling, you move. You write the book. You launch the idea. You make the call. You do the rep. You invest the time. Every step forward is a vote for the future you're building. But here's the key. Don't act for applause. Act from principle. Don't chase outcomes. Create identity. Act not because it's easy, but because it's essential. Now, gratitude. This is the anchor, the grounding, the soil where everything else grows. Gratitude doesn't mean you settle. It means you see. You see the lessons in the loss. You see the opportunity in the work. You see the growth in the struggle. You see the gift in every breath. When you practice gratitude, you don't just elevate your mood, you elevate your perspective. Gratitude turns what you have into enough. And from that place, you build more. You don't become complacent, you become content with progress. You work not from scarcity, but from abundance. You give because you know you have more than you think. You grow because you're grateful for the chance to improve. And now, adaptability. Because life will change, plans will break, people will disappoint you. And if you don't adapt, you'll drown. Working harder on yourself means preparing your mind to pivot, not panic. It means letting go of how it was and stepping boldly into how it must be. The people who survive aren't always the smartest, they're the most adaptable. They learn, they evolve, they shift without losing their soul. They stay anchored in values, but flexible in methods. And finally, resilience. This is your armor, because there will be days when nothing makes sense, when your efforts don't get results, when you feel like giving up, when the mirror looks like a stranger, and that's when the real work begins. Resilience isn't how loud you roar when you're winning. It's how quiet you grind when you're bleeding. It's the ability to stand up after 10 knockdowns, dust yourself off, and whisper again. Work harder on your bounce back than your breakthrough. Because life isn't about what happens to you. It's about what happens in you and then flows through you. The world is watching the show, but the work, the real work, it's happening in the dark, when no one is clapping, when no one is posting about you, when no one is paying attention. And that's where greatness is born. That's where character is forged. That's where leaders are built. That's where legacies are written. Not in the job, not in the status, but in the quiet, sacred commitment to work harder on yourself than anything else in this world. So go back to the basics, not because you're weak, but because you're building a foundation no storm can shake. Refuse to coast. Refuse to blame. Refuse to wait. You were not made to survive. You were made to rise. And every single day is a chance, not just to do your job, but to do yourself justice. And if you're willing to rise not once, but every single morning with resolve in your breath and discipline in your bones, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to doubt, to fear, to mediocrity. You see, most people live their entire lives reacting, reacting to pressure, reacting to opinions, reacting to circumstances, and they wonder why their life feels like a storm they can't control. But the one who works harder on themselves than they do on their job, that person creates the weather. That person doesn't ask for favorable winds, they become the wind. They don't wait for perfect timing. They act with perfect clarity. And it's that internal work, that unseen grind, that mental weightlifting no one applauds, which determines whether your success is temporary or transformational. Let's make something very clear. There is no finish line to this. You don't arrive at self-development. You don't complete the course and collect a certificate in becoming unstoppable. You build yourself daily. Every decision, every thought, every moment of resistance, every moment of honesty. Because the person you become is not born from comfort, but from choice. The choice to study when others scroll. The choice to rest with intention, not escape from responsibility. The choice to apologize when you're wrong, to stand firm when you're right, to face your flaws with courage and polish them into virtues. Let me ask you this. What would happen if you spent the next 6 months not trying to impress the world, but trying to elevate your worth? What would change if you poured your focus not into changing your career, but into changing your character? What would your life look like if you decided with conviction that you are your most valuable investment? Not your house, not your bank account, not your social following. You, your mind, your body, your ethics, your essence. Let me give you the truth. Nobody markets to you. Self-work is unglamorous. There's no loud applause when you choose the salad over the fast food. There's no standing ovation when you spend the evening journaling instead of numbing out on entertainment. There's no viral post when you confront your weaknesses, clean up your habits, and take radical ownership of your mess. But behind every quiet moment of discipline is a loud future screaming with possibility. Because when you sharpen you become the kind of person that opportunity seeks out. Not because of how you look, or how smooth you talk, or how many hours you work, but because of how deep your roots run when the winds of chaos blow. Let's talk about the roots for a moment. Most people build skyscrapers on sand. They decorate, they promote, they celebrate, and then wonder why their life collapses at the first quake. You've got to dig deeper than that. You've got to excavate the beliefs that hold you back. You've got to tear out the weeds of your excuses, your past narratives, your victim thinking. You've got to rebuild the foundation from self-trust, from integrity, from internal power. It's slow work, quiet work, but it's the kind of work that builds unshakable men and women. Because here's the reality. When you work harder on yourself than your job, you become employable for life by any dream, any mission, any destiny. Why? Because your worth is not rented, it's refined. Your value isn't conditional. It's cultivated. And your power? It's no longer reactive to the world's validation. It's originated from within. People will wonder how you keep winning. They'll say, you're lucky. They'll think it's talent. They'll assume it's natural. But you'll know the truth. You've been working in silence, in darkness, in daily decisions nobody sees. And the fruits they see are the result of roots they never studied. Now I want to speak to the exhausted part of you, the part that's tired of pushing, the part that questions if this internal work even matters. It does, because what you're building is not just success, it's substance, and substance endures. Substance is what remains when the lights go out. Substance is what walks in when the crowd walks away. Substance is what you fall back on when life collapses everything else. Success without substance is a sandcastle. But success with substance, that's a fortress. And only those who work harder on themselves than on their resume ever build one. You don't need to impress the world. You need to impress upon yourself that your time here matters. That your life is not a game to be watched, but a canvas to be painted. With bold strokes, with vivid color, with intention behind every brush. Let me tell you, you're not too late. You're not too far gone. You're not too flawed to to rebuild. If you've got breath, you've got bricks. If you've got vision, you've got a plan. If you've got hunger, you've got a future. But you've got to build it from within. Your job will teach you skills. The world will teach you trends. But only you can teach yourself who you are becoming. And if you're wise, if you're serious about a life that means something, you'll stop outsourcing that responsibility. You'll pick up the hammer, you'll lay the brick, you'll write the words. You'll rise again and again and again. Not because it's easy, not because it's popular, but because you've decided, I will not let this world outwork me on me. And that, my friend, is the beginning of unstoppable. Unstoppable isn't a feeling, it's a decision. A decision to keep showing up. A decision to keep growing, even when no one is watching. A decision to build something eternal in a world addicted to the temporary. You become unstoppable, not because you never fail, but because you refuse to stop becoming. And when you carry that mindset, everything around you starts to change. You don't chase success anymore. You attract it. You don't beg for opportunities. You create them. You don't fear rejection because your value is no longer up for debate. You've already voted for yourself in silence with action. People will start noticing something about you even if they can't name it. They'll feel your presence differently. They'll sense your clarity, your depth, your quiet confidence. Because you'll no longer be walking around trying to be someone. You'll simply become someone. You'll walk into rooms not hoping to be chosen, but knowing you belong not because of ego, but because you've done the work. And that's the secret most never learn. The work you do on yourself becomes the energy people feel from you. It's in your posture, your tone, your decisions, your habits, your pace. You no longer rush. You no longer chase. You no longer prove. You simply are. You become the kind of person who doesn't need motivation because your habits are stronger than your moods. You become the kind of person who doesn't need validation because your values speak louder than the noise. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to impress because your essence is undeniable. That's what happens when you work harder on yourself than your job. Your life becomes a reflection of your internal world. And when that world is fortified, pure, and intentional, the external world has no choice but to mirror it. So the question is not, how do I get ahead? The question is, who must I become to deserve what I seek? Because you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you want excellence, become excellence. If you want respect, walk with integrity. If you want peace, master your reactions. If you want wealth, think like a steward. If you want love, lead with love. And if you want power, real power, don't look outward. Look inward. Now, let's be honest. This journey isn't for everyone. Most people would rather complain than change. They'd rather escape than confront. They'd rather wear the mask than reveal the truth. Because it's easier to build an image than to build identity. But that's not you. You wouldn't be here now listening to this if you weren't ready. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to stop waiting. Ready to stop negotiating with mediocrity. And start becoming the person your future is begging for. So don't let this moment pass as inspiration. Let it be your ignition. Don't just nod and say, that's true. Make it true in the quiet hours that no one else sees, because that's where your life will shift. Not in the public, not in the ceremony, but in the repetition, in the decision to wake up early, to journal when it's easier to scroll, to say no when it's unpopular, to lift when you're sore, to listen when your ego wants to speak, to learn when you think you already know. This isn't about changing your life in a day. It's about deciding who you are and proving it daily. So, how do you begin? You begin by looking in the mirror and asking, what part of me needs to grow today? And you attack that part with love and intensity. You begin by carving out 1 hour a day, just one, where your focus is on growth, not tasks. Reading, writing, reflecting, planning, practicing, training. 1 hour where the world doesn't get a say, only you do. And slowly but surely your identity begins to shift. Not in loud leaps, but in quiet layers. Until one day you look around and realize the world didn't change, you did. And because you changed, your results changed. Your relationships changed. Your career changed. Your decisions changed. Your life changed because you stopped outsourcing your power. You stopped being a product of your environment and became the architect of your environment. You built something the storms couldn't take. You built something the critics couldn't shake. You built something the failures couldn't break. You built you. So the next time someone asks you, what do you do? Don't just tell them your job. Tell them the truth. You work harder on yourself than anything else. Because when you do, everything else takes care of itself. And that daily work of becoming is the most important job you will ever have. You see, the world keeps telling you to hustle harder, grind faster, rise earlier, sleep less. But here's the deeper truth they don't say loud enough. It's not about how hard you work, it's about who is doing the work. Because if the wrong version of you is hustling, all you're doing is building a future that won't fit you. You'll chase goals that don't fulfill you. You'll attract people who don't value you. You'll make money doing things that steal your spirit. And at the end of it all, you'll be holding trophies that don't matter, wondering why you still feel empty. But when the right version of you shows up, the one who's aligned, disciplined, awake, intentional, the work becomes sacred. The results become a reflection of truth. And success becomes a byproduct, not a pursuit. That's why your greatest work is not in what you build out there. It's in what you build in here, inside your mindset, inside your emotional intelligence, inside your belief system, inside your principles. Because jobs come and go, markets change, titles expire, but the person you become, that stays, that compounds, that shapes every room you enter. So let the world keep rushing. Let them chase status. Let them sprint on treadmills of burnout. You build slow. You build deep. You build right. Because you're not here to impress. You're here to impact. And impact starts with the discipline to sit with yourself, to face the uncomfortable, to question the stories, to upgrade your habits, to rewrite your narrative. You stop outsourcing your accountability. You stop blaming your boss, your past, your family, your country, your circumstances. You take the steering wheel, not because it's fair, but because it's yours. That's what it means to work harder on yourself than your job. It means you value identity over image, character over clout, depth over decoration. You realize that legacy is not what you leave behind. It's what you live right now. Every word, every interaction, every choice. You become a walking example of what's possible, not by talking about it, but by being it. And yes, it's hard. It's hard to hold yourself to that standard. It's hard to rise when you're tired. It's hard to stay grounded when the world is shouting. It's hard to keep pushing when the rewards are invisible. But you don't do it for the easy. You do it for the evolution. Because when you work harder on yourself than you do on your job, you don't just make money. You make meaning. You don't just build income, you build impact. You don't just earn rewards, you earn respect. Starting with the person in the mirror. And that is priceless. So let me leave you with this. Every morning, you wake up with a choice. You can either continue being the version of you the world has shaped, or you can become the version you were born to build. And if you choose the latter, if you choose the path of growth, depth, and internal mastery, you'll find that the job, the income, the recognition, all of it will come. But not because you chased it, because you became it. You became the kind of person success couldn't ignore. You became the kind of soul the world needed. You became the kind of mind storms couldn't shake. And all of it All of it started the moment you said, from this day forward, I will work harder on myself than I do on anything else. Because you are your greatest masterpiece. So build wisely, build daily, build relentlessly. And the world will watch in awe as you rise.